I saw this and I wish, when did he release this? I could have done this last weekend and I didn't know he did it. And then like on Monday, I saw all the people making their own reactions like, darn it, I could have done this. Because it's the greatest invention in the 20th century, air conditioning, the fat files, the fat electrician. And I watched some of this happen. I participated in some of this. I got into fights over air conditioning, America versus Europe. And the heat and the humidity and all that fun stuff. So I think I know some of what's coming up in this video already, just because I watched him do it. I engaged in some of the verbal sparring, let's call it, between people. I went looking up stats. And he is mad. I know from what I've seen leading into this that he is mad. I think, well, all right. I'm gonna shut up and get going rather than continue to ramble about it. Is he ever happy? If he brings the energy to this that he's had in the podcasts and the streams and on Twitter and everywhere, no, he's not ever happy, but he is even angrier now.
I'm just going to come out and say it. The Europeans are apparently making window cheese, and you're going to have to stick around if you want to know what that means.
Oh, no. I already know what this is because I saw it. Not in relation to him. I saw the other people talking about this. And it is the absolute dumbest crap ever.
Today we're talking about the most important invention of the 20th century, air conditioning. Can't know what you're thinking. That's a pretty big claim. We came up with a lot of important stuff in the 20th century. That is true. However, air conditioning is the most important one. I'm going to prove it, and then I'm going to relentlessly talk smack about Europeans the entire time, right after word from our sponsor. This video is brought to you by Supremacy World War III.
We are watching the ad.
Play online
We are using
PvP
his video.
military-based strategy game. The entire thing's based on a World War III type scenario where you get to pick your country and go to war with the rest of the world. You can forge alliances, or you can just go solo and try to take over the whole thing yourself. They've just introduced a new shadow market, which is basically the black market where you can do a bunch of sketchy, illegal stuff under the table that's going to upset people if they find out. And I'm not exaggerating when I say it's going to upset people. That's literally a function of the game. If you get caught, it can actually cause insurgencies, civil unrest, or damage the morale of your country. Unpopular opinion, they should probably update it so it increases the morale of the American military if they get caught, because their unofficial motto is, if you're not cheating, you're not trying. I mean, it's never a war crime the first time. So if you want to give it a try, you can play with up to 99 other people, and it's available on both PC and mobile, and it's free. So if you want to check it out, I'm going to have a link and a discount code down below. Let's get back to the video.
Okay, so he's not wrong about the U.S. military. Other nations train their soldiers such that if they lose their chain of command, that they hunker down and wait for orders. The United States does not do this. It trains soldiers down to the individual to operate independently. And multiple nations have talked about how it's really, really scary whenever you realize you killed an American officer. Because with most nations, you killed the one making the decisions. With the United States military, you killed the one keeping everyone from committing war crimes. Because American soldiers left to their own devices will get really creative with exactly how they're going to win the next battle. Oh no, they killed the only one who could spell Geneva. Accurate. So, for a lot of nations that have gone to like proper war with the U.S., you could get reports from like multiple instances of both enemies and allies all saying it's a really bad idea to kill the American officers, because that's when things get bad for you.
All right, why are we even talking about air conditioning right now? Okay, if you're not chronically on the internet like myself, A, good for you, but B, let me fill you in real quick. Every June or July, there's a magical time of year where the British experience a heat wave. There's newspaper articles, there's British and European people getting on the internet talking shit about how the Americans just don't understand a British heat wave. We couldn't possibly survive, yada, yada, yada. So then I get on there, I'm competitive, they're talking smack. It's like, okay, I mean, how hot is it over there? Never been there. Maybe it is super hot. I have no idea. So then you look into it and all the headlines are like, the British heat wave has reached over 30 degrees Celsius for the 5th day in a row.
Yeah, Whoop-de-doo. To convert is times 2, add 32, and join the rest of the human race.
Okay, my country's flag is on the moon. I have no idea what 30 degrees Celsius is, so then you got to get on Google again. You got to ask it what 30 degrees Celsius is converted into Fahrenheit, the superior way of measuring temperature. It's like 86 degrees, and these people are acting like they're melting. Buh! Actually, Celsius is better because it's a metric system. You know, that measurement system the entire world uses except for you guys.
I actually have a problem with this argument. I am fine with metric for meters, you know, for measuring distance. I am only sort of fine sometimes with kilograms versus pounds, because it depends. Are you actually measuring weight or are you measuring mass? Because kilograms measure mass, not weight. There is, in fact, an important distinction. Celsius is based on the boiling point of water. Fahrenheit, I don't actually think I know what Fahrenheit's based on. But I still have a problem with Celsius. Because here's the thing. The boiling point of water is variable. That is not great. Because I, despite living in a desert, live in the desert that's really high up. I'm like 10,000, 12,000, 14,000, some number of thousands of feet above sea level. The boiling point of water is different than what Celsius says it is. So that's an issue.
Obviously the best. But no, it isn't. It doesn't even make sense. Okay, Fahrenheit is the easiest concept on the planet. 0 is cold.
Fahrenheit is how humans feel. Celsius is how water feels, and Kelvin is how the universe feels. Accurate. Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
100 is hot. Fahrenheit is the easiest concept on the planet. 0 is cold. 100 is hot. Based on the human experience.
Also there. Okay.
The end. Celsius, on the other hand, is based on the freezing and boiling point of water, which doesn't even make sense because the freezing and boiling point of water isn't a constant. It depends on like 20 other variables, including altitude. Okay, when somebody asks you, how hot is it outside? Nobody's asking you, how does a glass of water at sea level feel about the temperature outside? No, I'm asking you, are my balls going to be sweaty if I go outside? Do I need to wear shorts? Do I need to bring baby powder? Is monkey butt a potential hazard? These are the questions I want to know. I don't give a fuck how water feels about it.
Oh gosh, it's just too much.
I'm sorry, I'm getting distracted. Anyways, this happens every year. The Europeans get on the internet, they complain about a heat wave, 86 degrees. They pretend like they're melting. They say the Americans don't understand. We couldn't possibly survive.
F is based on 0 being when the ocean in England freezes, and 90 to 96 is where humans are. Okay. I didn't actually know the history of Fahrenheit there. But yeah, it's like Celsius in a controlled environment doing science things, sure. Anyways.
A British heat wave, yada, yada, yada. Well, this year, something amazing happened. The FIFA World Cup
I
is
have
in
loved
America,
this.
so a bunch of Europeans...
This has been
came to
amazing.
America, and they got to experience American heat, and it became overwhelmingly obvious to them they are, in fact, just being giant pansy asses about the entire situation. At which point, the Europeans realized that they were wrong, they admitted defeat, and we all moved on. I'm just kidding. The Europeans pivoted, they moved the goalposts, and then the entire conversation became about air conditioning. Okay, I had no idea because I'm an American.
Okay, before we get to air conditioning, I just want to say something, okay? Because of my own arguments, I ended up looking this up. We're going to take Alaska out of the equation. We're going to take Hawaii out of the equation. We're going to take Russia out of the equation. Mainland Europe, in its hottest and coldest points, is still less than mainland America. The coldest it's ever been in Europe is about 10 degrees Fahrenheit warmer than the coldest it has ever been in mainland USA. The hottest it's ever been in mainland Europe is about 15 degrees cooler than the hottest it's ever been in mainland USA. We don't count Hawaii because it gets over 2,000 degrees there at points. We don't count Alaska because it gets so cold that measuring in Kelvin is a reasonable expectation. Furthermore, in a large percentage of the United States, the individual area swings are wider than in equivalent places in Europe. Some places up to 20 degrees. Not a lot, but we're talking the most, since everyone's talking about the most with this subject. Where in one place, in multiple places, it gets colder in the winter and hotter in the summer. In the same place. It's not like, oh, we're in a colder place, so it gets colder, and then we're in a hotter place, so it gets hotter. No, it goes in both ways. 20 degrees in a day. Yeah, but I mean, like, as far as the coldest point of the year on average versus the hottest point in the year on average. Not even just within a day. Though, yes, within a day, you can get some absolutely insane swings, too. I live in the desert. It can be over 100 degrees in the day and cold enough that I need to wear a jacket at night. Or it's like, legitimately, okay, I am uncomfortably cold now. Now, I live in the desert, so I do have the benefit of not having to deal with humidity. But there are a lot of places in the US that also have to deal with absolutely insane 80%, 90%, almost 100%. Actually, I think some places do get 100% humidity as well. So you can't even say, oh, it's a different kind of heat. Now, the Europeans that came to the United States have admitted defeat. The Europeans who weren't brave enough to come over and see for themselves have been absolutely just, no, Their fellow Europeans disagree with them now. But yeah, it's the temperature differences, looking at the most extremes and the averages, are just much wider.
American, to be honest with you, I don't.
Oh, and I have a theory, but I don't know this one. I think the reason for the wider temperatures is because, for the most part, the bulk of the United States is within two mountain ranges. We've got a mountain range on the east and a mountain range on the west that separates a massive chunk of the United States from the Pacific and the Atlantic Oceans. We just have the Gulf to the south, which is also semi-sheltered due to the land around it. As such, we do not quite have the same kind of, well, okay, I need to expand on this. And then it's flat on the inside, for the most part. We've got two lines of mountains, and then it's flat on the inside for the most part. Over in Europe, more of them is closer to the ocean without big mountain ranges in between them. And the areas that have mountain ranges are just like all mountains with no big, wide, flat, open areas. So I believe that, we know for a fact that large bodies of waters have a moderating effect on temperature. And we know that mountains can have a shielding effect on temperature. So I believe that that's why America is a nation of extremes, that the mountains, because they're only on the edges, block a lot of the ocean moderating capability, and we just have this big, wide open area that's just whatever Mother Nature decides to do to it is gonna have to deal with it.
Admitted defeat, and we all moved on. I'm just kidding. The Europeans pivoted, they moved the goalposts, and then the entire conversation became about air conditioning. Okay, I had no idea because I'm an American, and to be honest with you, I don't give a fuck about European politics, but apparently the British and the French are like morally and mentally just adamantly opposed to air conditioning to the point that it is literally a humongous political debate over there right now.
In the UK, France, Germany, Belgium, the Netherlands, and I forget where else, they have arrested people for running air conditioning.
And the right wing and the left wing over in France is literally divided on air conditioning. Air conditioning in France is right-wing technology. I'm not exaggerating. And me, with how my brain works, now I have to know the history
Italy?
of air conditioning.
Okay,
So,
that would make
from
sense.
the top. The first modern air conditioner was invented in 1902 by an engineer by the name of Willis Carrier, and Willis Carrier was hired by a publishing company to come in
I know
and
who that
solve
guy
a problem.
is.
The problem this publishing company
My air conditioner's one of his.
had was that when they were trying to print things in summer, the heat and humidity was causing fluctuations in the paper and the printing process, giving them an inconsistent product that they weren't happy with. So he gets hired to come in and figure out a way to make their product more consistent while they're printing in summer. And his first option is, obviously, I'm just going to change the environment. I'm going to make
I didn't
it a
know this
constant.
part of
I'm
the
going to get
story.
rid of the heat and the humidity so it's no longer a factor. Then we can tune the machines once and we can print away because it's always going to be the same temp and the same humidity in the factory. Okay, pause. I need you to understand, as a person in 2026 that's grown up with like
Hey,
modern
Rippy.
technology, this sounds obvious, like duh, just do that. But at the time in 1902, Homeboy literally came out of left field and is like, clearly, I just have to change the rules of physics. I have to change the entire world around me so this works. I'm literally gonna attempt to domesticate the fucking wind so I can print books. Okay, do you understand how insane that is? That would be if like the Wright brothers, when they were trying to design an airplane, were like, fucking we'll just turn off gravity. Duh.
It's science.
But somehow, this guy manages to do it, fixes the printing problem, sees the potential, patents the idea, patents the phrase air conditioning, and then he goes and creates the Carrier Air Conditioning Company, which is still around today, has like over 50,000 employees, and is worth over $20 billion. So air conditioning is like primarily used in these
Told
factory
you.
type settings. In 1914, there are some people starting to get air conditioners in their homes, but it's extremely rare. By the early 1930s, they are starting to have like commercial air conditioning units that you can put in a home, but they cost like $10,000, which in 1932, convert that to today's money, it's almost like $250,000 for a window air conditioning unit. But
Oof.
people were willing to pay it because if you got the money, not having ball sweat is priceless.
Hell yeah.
Oddly enough, you can make the argument that air conditioning is actually responsible for movies, TV, and Hollywood as a whole. Because outside of manufacturing, one of the first industries to
And then Lovecraft finds this very... Yeah. H.P. Lovecraft, the person. Well, the semblance of a person. I wouldn't call him a human being, but he's some semblance of a person. Absolutely hates air conditioning. Hated air conditioning. I wouldn't say he thought this was the devil's work, because he didn't really understand it from that perspective. He just thought it was he really did think this was like a physics breaking, the laws of the universe do not follow, it breaks how the universe works in order to get air conditioning. He wrote one that I could think of, but I'm pretty sure that was more. I know there was one that was centered around air conditioning being like a way to keep someone who was dead alive. Like the person was biologically dead, but the body was so cold thanks to air conditioning that it didn't actually stop. I know that there is that story. I think the air conditioning was at least featured in others as, again, an unnatural thing, but not necessarily a key storyline. But yeah, Lovecraft, lost his mind at the idea of air conditioning. And not in a good way. Human shaped enough to find a wife. I still don't understand that one.
TV, and Hollywood as a whole. Because outside of manufacturing, one of the first industries to adopt air conditioning is movie theaters, which makes so much sense because I cannot tell you how many times I've been shown like, oh, this is a silent film from
I didn't know this, but yeah,
fuck,
it makes
and,
sense.
It was so funny at the time, blah, 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 blah. Nobody was going to movie theaters in the 1920s, the 1930s, the 1940s because they enjoyed watching silent films. They were going because that was the only place they could go to get air conditioning and get out of the heat for 2 hours. You can actually go back and read accounts from people at the time where they're like, yeah, no, we don't go to the movie theater because we give a shit about the movie. We just go so we can go there to cool off. So in a way, it's pretty likely, or at least you could argue that if it wasn't for air conditioning, the film industry as we know it today might not exist. Regardless, movie theaters were a lot of people's first encounter with air conditioning, and once they saw it, they're like, holy shit, this is awesome. I want to get it inside my house. But from here, the cost of air conditioners actually plummets because it's something that everybody can use and everybody wants. It's just like TVs. When I was a kid growing up, a flat screen TV was like $12,000. It was some absurd amount of money. And today I can go to Walmart and buy a 70-inch flat screen TV that's better than those TVs when I was growing up for like $400. So air conditioning got incredibly cheap and incredibly fast when you compare it to pretty much anything else. And by the 1950s, they were starting to have literal experiments that they would call air-conditioned villages.
And also at the rate of inflation, the equivalent dollar amount is even less.
Basically, they were new housing developments where all these new homes had air conditioning in them, and they actually had psychologists and scientists go in, and the families that bought these homes volunteered to be studied for over a year to see the impacts of living in an air-conditioned climate in your home and how it would affect you. People had no idea what would happen. Would they go crazy? Would they not be able to handle going outside anymore? These were all huge unknowns at the time. And you want to know what the psychologists and the scientists concluded about living in air conditioning? It's pretty fucking awesome. Okay, they found out that everybody slept better, and they also found out that the housewives were reporting back to the psychologists that their husbands, and I quote, had a better disposition, aka
the 50s. The 50s are a thing in the US.
their husbands weren't as fucking grumpy all the time. You can literally go back and read the articles. We'll read one right now. Headline, air conditioning helps with disposition. Women living in air-conditioned homes in Austin, Texas, the air-conditioned village, startled a team of psychologists and researchers by asserting their husbands' dispositions had somehow miraculously improved under the influence of air conditioning. Okay, when you're not hot, you're not grumpy. Fucking shocking, I know. Oddly enough, statistical data collected by these researchers indicated that indoor conditions within these homes could be conducive to support this opinion of these air-conditioned housewives. Reading newspapers from the 50s is crazy because it's just like, well, the housewives are saying their husbands are in the better mood, but them bitches are crazy. We can't trust them. We need empirical data to prove their opinion might be correct.
Beautiful. I know.
But even more strongly indicated is the likely possibility.
Okay, so they worded it in the worst way possible, but I will point out that technically when you're doing a scientific study, empirical evidence is necessary, but man, did they do it in the worst way possible.
That the women themselves, as a result of enjoying the comforts of air conditioning, were able to look upon their spouses with a little more than usual benevolence. Okay, translation, mom and dad are both in a better mood because nobody's sweating their ass off all day, obviously. Okay, just so we're all on the same page, if you're not picking up what I put down so far, air conditioning might be responsible for the entire film industry, TV as we know it today. It helps keep families together, and that's just scratching the surface on why it's the most important invention of the 20th century. Just to prove my point, let's have a thought exercise. I asked Google, completely blind. I had some guesses because I know a little bit about history, but I just went in blind and asked Google, what are the most important inventions of the 20th century?
Oh, here
Let's
we
see what
go.
they came up with. So coming in at number 1, we have the transistor, obviously extremely important, but the mass manufacturing of transistors isn't possible without air conditioning because in order to manufacture a transistor, you need purified air, humidity control, and temperature control, all of which are provided by air conditioning. So no air conditioning, no mass manufacturing of transistors.
Not just transistors, most electronics, period.
More point. Coming in at number 2, the internet, okay? Internet also can't exist without
There we
AC
go.
because the internet is run off of a bunch of server farms, which also need to be in a climate-controlled environment. You ever been inside of a server room? Pretty cold, pretty purified air. Can't have it without air conditioning. Coming in at number 3.
My summer job, we had a tiny little closet of a server room. And IT, of course, was like, no, we need air conditioning's needed. We need to keep it cold in here. And then we had one of those bosses that didn't understand why the server room needed to be cold. And oh my gosh, they almost fried the whole thing. Because they kept trying to crank up the temperature and be like, no, it doesn't need to be down in the 60s. It's like, it should really be down in the 50s.
Penicillin, obviously incredibly important. The world's first antibiotic, saved tens, if not hundreds of millions of lives since it was invented. And you know what? Would it exist without air conditioning? Almost certainly. However, would you be able to mass manufacture it to the degree that we do today as safely as we do without air conditioning?
Nope.
Absolutely not. Number
Or
4,
any
mass
other
production
medicine.
of automobiles. Could that exist without air conditioning? Yes, it could. However, if you look at where most cars are manufactured, Texas, Tennessee, Alabama, Mexico, none of those places would be able to crank out cars to the degree that they do without air conditioning, because you would have workers dropping out from heat stroke. In fact, most of the major cities in America that are in a hotter climate, like, I don't know, Las Vegas, Phoenix, Dallas, Houston, Orlando, Atlanta,
Oh my gosh,
all
yes.
of which would probably exist to some degree if it wasn't for air conditioning. But air
The AC broke with the server room there. We brought in dry ice and filled the room. There's on dangerous CO2 poison in that room. Still gonna. Oh my. Yeah. You do not understand how rapidly, even just normal servers, not even like an overworked server or anything. Normal server loads. How rapidly that will raise the temperature. Oh my gosh. I don't know why. I don't know why we got to, because humans are stupid. That's why.
conditioning allowed them to grow into major metropolitan areas. It's literally a saying, air conditioning made Phoenix possible. And last but not least, the airplane. Now, would the Wright brothers have strapped some wings to a bicycle, drove it off a cliff, and figured out how to fly? Absolutely. Is commercial flight without air conditioning as we know it today possible? Absolutely not. The inside of that cabin on that plane would be 400 degrees if it wasn't for air conditioning. So yes, air conditioning
Or it would be unsealed and miserable in many other ways.
is the most important invention of the 20th century. Which raises a question, why the fuck don't the Europeans just use it?
Right. What did he say?
Said it has his edge, huh? He only chopped him down because he couldn't see the view no more. What's he known about?
And the
His
answers to that
face.
question might be the most infuriating answers to a question I've ever gotten in my entire life. Answer number 1. Europeans don't need air conditioning because the climate isn't as hot as America. Now, setting aside the fact that that proves the initial point that America is hotter and we could survive a British heat wave, we'll just set that off to the side real quick. The Europeans say shit like, well, we wouldn't run them that often and we would only need them for like 1 month a year. Cool. Do you know how much shit I own that I don't need very often? I've had a spare tire in every car I've ever owned my entire life. I've never had to use it. I've still fucking got it just in case. If there was something that I only needed to use 30 days a year to make sure my balls weren't hot while I was trying to sleep, you best believe I'm gonna fucking own it. Oh, well, Europeans are tougher than you Americans. We'll just grit our teeth and bear it. Are you? Are you really? Because last I checked, 175,000 fucking people died from heat stroke because you're too fucking stupid to buy an air conditioner. Do you understand?
The United States is between 2,000 and 4,000. Period.
How insane? Are you really? Because last I checked, 175,000 fucking people died from heat stroke because you're too fucking stupid to buy an air conditioner. Do you understand how insane that is? If there was any other event on the planet that killed 175,000 people, there would be memorials and statues commemorating what a tragedy this was. But because it's just you guys being like, well, the Americans invented a machine that can domesticate wind, but we don't want to admit they're right, so we would rather let all our young and elderly die of heat stroke than give them the W. What are you doing? Okay, which leads right into the next argument, the most infuriating.
Okay, so it gets worse for Europe. It gets worse for Europe, okay? Because I was involved in this. To be fair, 20,000. I don't know that that number includes Russia. I think Russia's its own thing. Unless you mean there's an additional 20,000 people, which that would not surprise me. Not only do 175,000 people die to heat, just to put more of a point on it, 375,000 people in Europe died of cold. Meanwhile, in the US, the deadliest year for the heat, 2,394 people died to the heat. $40,000 people died of the cold. So it's more people to the, and I know that that statistic is heavily talking about people that are in cars that get wrecked and get stuck. That's a sizable chunk of that particular percentage. Because the United States is huge, and you can get stuck someplace where there is no chance of you being found in time. So we've got just over 2,000 to 175,000. We've got roughly 40,000 to 375,000. Meanwhile, the absolute most gun deaths reported in the United States is 48,830, which is not just mass shootings, that's gang violence, that's police shootings, that's individual murders, that's self-defense, that's suicides, and that's idiots that have an accident because they didn't check to see if the gun was loaded or not. Do you understand the massive disparity? Yeah, and it's Darwin. Okay, yeah, and Darwin Award recipients, people who just did something stupid. It's, and that's treated like the worst thing in the world. Meanwhile, we've got 5 times as many heat deaths and 12 times as many cold deaths in Europe. When we've got about the same cold deaths here and massively less heat deaths here. It is bonkers. What I could not believe when I first looked up these statistics to see what the different death rates were. He is right. If American gun violence is an epidemic, what the heck is the weather deaths in Europe? You might argue the lack of AC constitutes also a recipient of the Darwin Awards. At this point, I am prepared to go with that. It is absolutely insane.
One, because I used to build shit for a living. I'm heat stroke, then give them the W. What are you doing? Okay, which leads right into the next argument, the most infuriating one, because I used to build shit for a living. Americans don't understand because our homes are actually built to retain heat, so an air conditioner wouldn't work as well.
That's how insulation works.
That's just insulation. That's how insulation works, okay? Do you have a thermos? If you put hot tea or whatever stupid shit you guys drink in a thermos, you know how it stays hot? Now dump it out and put fucking ice water in it. The ice water stays cold, okay? Your house isn't specifically designed to be hot inside. It's designed to have a controlled temperature regardless of what's going on outside. So if you buy an air conditioner and you cool off the house, it stays fucking cool. Well, air conditioning's really expensive. No.
There is an argument that a lot of European houses are better insulated because of the massive prevalence of stone and brickwork as opposed to most of the wooden and drywall type work in the US. But if we can figure it out, they sure can.
No, it isn't. You can buy a window unit for $169 to cool off the room that you sleep in, or your living room, or whatever, okay? The average minimum wage of Europe is $8.33 American. That's 20 hours of the most unskilled labor that you have available in exchange for a magic box that
I would double that, so 40 hours, just because I know for a fact that they have cranked up imports and taxes on air conditioners. So I would double that price, and even then, it's well worth it. 400 American to not die for something that'll last 20 years, go for it.
Domesticates the fucking wind so you don't have to sweat your balls off. Okay, that is a modern miracle, and you're saying that that's too expensive? I would pay an outrageous amount of money to see a British person go back in time and talk to one of their ancestors, some medieval peasant picking turnips outside of a castle, and explain to them that in the future, there's a magical box that can make the house cold when it's hot outside, and in exchange for that, all they had to do...
I would sell my house to pay for tickets to go watch this happen. Holy crap, this is a great scenario.
Was make the house cold when it's hot outside, and in exchange for that, all they had to do was work 20 hours, and they could cool off their house
40
for years upon years to come, and then explain to them with deadpan stare, but I don't do it because it's expensive.
Are you pulling my leg?
Motherfucker, it's literally magic to these people. You have the opportunity to buy climate-changing magic for 20 hours of your time, and you're just like, nah, I'd rather let grandma and grandpa die from heat stroke. I'm gonna be honest with you, I'm slowly coming around to the idea that this is actually a conspiracy by the European governments to slowly kill off old people so they don't break their universal healthcare system. There's no other logical explanation for why you would be anti-air conditioning. And apparently one of the big talking points is, oh,
I already believe this, okay? And I'm going to tell you why. Besides the fact that, yes, more old people die to this than any other group, followed by the youngest people. Whenever there's been extreme weather and power demands that can't hold up to it, they always shut it off for the old people first. You can look that up. It is statistically true. And that is one of the big things, is the fact that because they shut down all their reactors, they don't have the power capacity to handle a ton of AC switching on at once. Do we all remember the Paris Olympics when they were saying no AC for all of the Olympians? And there was a whole thing about that because Paris couldn't take it. They're doing this. They're doing this because they can't run the electricity anymore because they don't have nuclear reactors anymore. And they're doing this because, again, I am convinced of this because they always shut it off, both the cool and the heat, just the power in general. They always shut it off first for the old people, and it hits the news and it's quickly swept away and we move on to something else. And here is the biggest thing with his comment about the socialized healthcare in particular. Here's the biggest thing. When Orange Man put out the most favored nation thing for medicine, which has barely taken effect, the first 10 medicines just start to equalize between what Americans pay and what everyone else pays. And they didn't even reach an equilibrium. It was just, they just started to raise the price on the foreign pay because it's so much less than what Americans pay. Multiple nations, including France and Germany, freaked out and flat out said that they're not sure that their national health care will be able to sustain it based on the higher prices. They just outright came out and said it and then realized what they said and started to backtrack and try to get quiet about it. But they just flat out said that based on just the price rises of those 10 medicines, which didn't even reach their maximum, that they wouldn't be able to sustain that they were worried that they wouldn't be able to sustain their socialized health care. I'm just going to say it. People keep saying it, and they just outright admitted it. The problem with socialism is you run out of other people's money. All these European socialized health cares are being subsidized by the United States. That's why the United States bills are so high. They came out and outright said it, and then the news was like, oh crap, we can't say that, and started trying to bury it. But you can find that still. So, yeah, he's saying he's starting to come around. I'm already there. Ever since they said that, I'm already there.
European governments to slowly kill off old people so they don't break their universal healthcare system. There's no other logical explanation for why you would be anti-air conditioning. And apparently one of the big talking points is, oh, well, air conditioning is actually bad for climate change, so it's only making the problem worse. And then the climate activists get on CNN or the BBC or whatever, and they're
The air conditioning bill, or not bill, but heat generated for all of New York City for domestic uses and office uses do not match, do not come close to most single factory carbon and heat emissions. Single factory, except for the tiny ones.
they're given interviews offering alternatives to air conditioning that you could do. I'm going to show you, because if I didn't show you the interview, you wouldn't believe me. Their solutions get progressively worse, but we're going to go ahead and start off with their best solution. Solution number one.
If it gets really hot, I sleep under a wet sheet. That's my other technique.
No.
How about no?
With a big bucket of water under the desk with my feet in the bucket of water.
Option number
Absolutely
two,
not.
Soak your feet in a bucket of water while you're sitting at home all day long.
Do you like
Also,
mold? This is how you get
no.
mold.
B, I know your house fucking stinks. It smells like wet feet and BO because you're not wearing deodorant and you don't have air conditioning, and I know you're sitting in the house sweating your ass off 24/7. No, I'm not doing it. And
That's how you get mold. Congratulations. More health problems for the socialized medicine that's not holding up.
option number three, I can't believe this is real.
Including, would you believe it, painting windows. with
I
yogurt.
saw this. Not this clip, but I saw that.
I just, how are you this
I know what the logic is, and it's absolutely stupid. The logic is if you put the yogurt on the window, it creates an opaque white film that reflects the light. No, seriously, that is what they're trying to argue. It is the absolute dumbest way that you could even do that. Because you know what else you could do? Put up a white sheet over your window and it does the same thing. Put paper over your window and it does the same thing. For Pete's sakes, they sell, I know because I have them on my windows, thick, heat insulating sheets that you can squeegee onto your windows that act as insulation and protection and UV blocking, and it's infinitely better than that. But no, we are going to tell the general population the absolute worst version of this solution. You literally put spoiled dairy and bacteria in. Oh my gosh, yes. Again, all these solutions are just how do you give people mold so they have to go use that, put more strain on the medical system. Oh my gosh, it is awful. At least just put paper on the window. That is better. It's a waste of paper, but it's better than using yogurt. I hate that logic.
Your solution, rather than just admitting the Americans are onto something with this air conditioning shit, is to smear yogurt on your fucking windows. You want to make window cheese rather than just turn on an air conditioner. How do you not see how fucking insane that sounds? Like, one of your biggest talking points is air conditioning is expensive. How expensive is it to smear a new layer of yogurt on all the windows on your house and then have your house smell like curdled milk and still be hot as shit? I can't even begin to fathom the amount of desperation and misery the person that figured this out was experiencing. Do you know how fucking hot and sweaty and delirious you have to be sitting at home in your living room on the couch for you to finally go, I gotta do something. I'm gonna try smearing yogurt on my windows.
Are you okay?
I'm fine. I just threw up in my mouth a little bit.
Like, what are you doing? Just get an air conditioner, for the love of God. Oh my God. At this point, I'm convinced that air conditioning could prevent World War III if you guys would just do it. No wonder you guys are always starting world wars and dragging us into it. You're all fucking grumpy and hot 24/7. Get some AC and come up with a peace treaty. I don't ever want to hear a European talk shit about America being dumb ever again. They always love to bring up like, oh, America has a bunch of gun violence, blah, 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 blah. Cool. More people are dying because you refuse to use air conditioning.
I just said
than
this.
Americans
I
are
just
dying
said
from gun
this.
violence, all right? And by a lot, it's not even close. Europe is losing 175,000 people a year. To put that into perspective, America had roughly 60,000 people die in the Vietnam War. How do you not see how insane that is? Air conditioning at this point is like the cheapest, most cost-effective, life-saving technology on the planet, and you're just like, nah, I don't want it. And the most beautiful part about all this is I know for a fact there's gonna be a ton of keyboard warriors with a bunch of stupid.
They don't want it for normal people. Let's see. What's her name for both the EU and the UN kept the air conditioner running for all the dignitary offices while shutting it off for all the worker offices. Multiple governments have done that. Government buildings have maintained their AC 24/7 while actively shutting off the power to sections of cities in order to shut off ACs, saying, well, we have to because the grid can't take it. Mahamdani keeps City Hall at a cool 64 degrees while telling people not to set the thermostat lower to 78 and shutting down sections of the city. You could see the blackout in multiple videos, like in the 4th of July and stuff, where they just shut off the power. It is absolutely asinine. I just turn the nuclear power plants back on. You'll be fine.
And the most beautiful part about all this is I know for a fact there's going to be a ton of keyboard warriors with a bunch of stupid talking points and smug comments in the comment sections. And this is going to get clipped and put on Twitter and Instagram and all these other places. And there's going to be all these comments. And you know what? None of those comments would be possible without air conditioning, because without air conditioning, the internet that you're using wouldn't function and the phone you're holding in your hand wouldn't have been able to get manufactured. You are proving my point that air conditioning is the most important invention of the 21st century, and if you don't have some, you should get some, and that's all I gotta say about that. Thank you for watching. Best way to support the channel is go buy some merch, maybe drink some Echelon. Links to both of those available over at thefatelectrician.com. Quack bang out.
Huh.
Don't forget to go check out Supremacy World War III, unlock your railgun, and go conquer the British. It's what George Washington would have wanted.
Old Lincoln story, which I think is just an old story that is true. I forget what Brit family, but major British family or house or whatever, put a picture of George Washington in their lavatory, loo, bathroom, whatever you want to call it, toilet. And who was it? Adams? Was it Adams? One of the big names who was visiting saw it and didn't get offended. And when asked why, he said, "That's a perfect place for the picture. Nothing will make an Englishman shit as fast as George Washington." That's a Lincoln story for you. We are involving two of my favorite presidents in this story. Oh my gosh, though. Oh. I knew a lot of that going in just because I was engaged in the same thing and I was seeing what he was doing. I was doing my own research and getting in fights with people. That was still a good one, but holy crap. And I still learned some things there. Like I knew Carrier invented the air conditioner, and that his company's still around. Again, I have a Carrier. I didn't know it was for book printing. That's actually kind of neat. Just this has been a whole thing, And again, it's just, it riles me up so much, specifically because of how many people die to this. That is the thing that is the main reason why I get so upset about this. When America's highest known numbers in modern day is just over 2,000, they're looking at 175,000 people. It is. He said it. We have monuments to the dead. I mean, I've visited multiple Vietnam monuments, including the big one. Up to has gone full patriot. I'm just full. I hate this logic and cannot process it. Ugh. I have a relative on the wall too. Yeah. It's a thing. And just on since I brought that up, I didn't quite mean to, but he's the one that brought up Vietnam, so there we are. It is really humbling to go there. And I think people should if they get a chance. Okay, I see things that I have missed that I need to watch. I don't know why I'm not getting him in my recommendation. Well, specifically, I don't know why I'm not getting the files and the electrician in my videos. I know why. It's because even though I'm subscribed, I watch them in private mode. So it doesn't show me watching them. I'm going to have to fix that.